Hello and welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you've never been here, hi, my name is Michael. If you love movies as much as I do, you could consider subscribing to the channel. If you like content like this, it won't be only horror content, but a lot of it will be, because that tends to be what I rewatch the most, because I find horror to be the most fun, and with life and the world being increasingly often dark, often difficult, it's just kind of nice to watch something that, for me anyway, as much as it scares me, it brings me great joy and entertainment. So, dude, this is a super cool shirt, right? But yeah, this is my first of 3 franchise discussions. Before I ever do my ranking, I want to do a discussion, because I will probably rank the Halloween films again in October, and I am certain that when I do those in spooky season, the rankings will change, because although I like many other kinds of films, I'm also very big on dramas, even romantic comedies, action. There's a lot of different films I like. Horror is something that I discovered at a young age, and it just always has been something that for me is kind of comforting in a way. It's nostalgic. It is something that's simple and easy for me to rewatch, and it doesn't cause me to have to get too wrapped up in my emotions. It kind of is a thrill ride. And a lot of times when I go to movies anymore, sometimes I want to be moved and feel things, but sometimes I just want to go and enjoy myself. And a lot of times horror does that, because it's so detached from reality. Like a Michael Myers type character can't exist, that I'm able to kind of get that that escape and that journey that I'm looking for from oftentimes when I go to films. Not that I don't like being connected to real things. I have lots of documentaries that are based on real events and things like that. But I broke this into 3 because there's a lot to be discussed. And also, before I do my franchise ranking, I wanted to talk these things out, because there's 2 or 3 different directions that I can go, because I have such a love for all of these films, except for one. I don't really think I have any love for it. But this first discussion is going to be on the sequel timeline. Halloween 1978, and then the first sequel in 1981, Halloween 2. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers in 1988, 1989's Halloween 5, or Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, depending on whether you're watching the movie or looking at the box. Or, and then we have Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. It's the 6th Halloween, but no 6 there, just Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, which there are 2 cuts of. I haven't decided if I'm going to rank both of them or not. I probably should, because they really are. The third act in particular is completely different, and they're similar enough, but also different enough. Now, I want to start off talking about Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I always rank this movie in the franchise, and it makes sense why I do, because it is in the franchise. I don't think for this ranking that I'm getting ready to do, I'm actually going to include it, because here's the thing with Halloween 3. I enjoy it. I like the movie. I really do. I don't go back to it as much, because when I was a kid, I was introduced to horror as far as I can remember. I mean, I have a good memory, but I'm not perfect. But as far as I can remember, my first clear horror memory, 1991, in the summer, I'm 8 years old. My uncle rents my cousin and I. It's kind of funny, because my uncle was like state's attorney, and just not the type you would think that was into horror. I don't know if he just did it because I was a little kid and he wanted to bless me, and he's, who knows, maybe he'd had a couple cocktails and it was a Saturday. I don't know. But he rented it. I always tell people, I wonder if I'd have been a horror fan if the first horror movie I watched I didn't like. But not only did it scare the bejesus out of me, it has, over the years, slowly cemented itself as my favorite horror movie of all time. So, spoiler alert, it's going to be number 1 even over the original. It's just always been my favorite. It's not only is it a good film, but it's a very, very good memory. And I actually think this is a super hot take, but I actually think it is a better version of the first movie. Scarier, better writing, better characters, things like that. So Season of the Witch, the reason I'm not going to include it is because it's hard for me to rank it. It really is, because it's so different than all of the other ones. It is such an outlier that it is very difficult for me to put a film like that. I enjoy it. I've really only watched it. I watched it a couple times when I was younger, but I think the first time I watched it, I realized Michael wasn't in it. Like most people, not having, well, I don't want to say most people, like others that have found this movie organically. Like my parents didn't watch horror, they didn't introduce me to these things. I had to find them on my own. And finding it in the wild and then realizing Michael wasn't in it, it didn't fit. Like every other movie, Dr. Loomis was like my guy. Much more so than Laurie Strode. Not that I didn't love seeing her back in H2O. First movie I ever saw in the theater. It used to be way higher. It's fallen. But it was such an outlier that it just didn't connect for me. So I like it. I usually rank it lower on the list because of there not being as much nostalgia and because it just doesn't have Michael in it. And it's not even just that Michael's in it. I like continuity. I'm the same way with Friday, with Nightmare. I love the ones where there's the complete story. Like in Nightmare on Elm Street, Nightmare 1 and Dream Warriors, to me, even if you have not a single other film in that whole franchise, if you remove all of them, I'm actually happy. Those are the two best films in the franchise to me, hands down. They are a perfect 1-2 punch. They follow each other. Nancy connects the story. Wes Craven had a hand in writing both of them. They feel like a complete story. You wouldn't have needed any others. And I'm the same way with Friday 1, 2, and 3, or Fridays 2, 3, 4, or 4, 5, 6. Some of those, they kind of connect. I love the connective tissue. I love like building worlds, and when these environments become bigger and they build upon themselves. To me, that's just really fun. And so the reason I'm not putting Halloween 3 in this is not because I don't like it. The Silver Shamrock stuff, the masks, the performances, the music is great. It's just, I don't know where I would rank it. I move it every time. And so this is the first time I've ever done this, but I'm not going to include it here, okay? So moving on from that. Halloween was created in 1978. It was, I'm gonna mess up some of the details, so I'm not perfect. This is literally completely off the top of my head. I have no notes. All I have here is a little thing written about different videos I'm gonna do. This says, I don't have any notes. This is completely from my mind, okay? So have some mercy. But basically there was a concept from a producer named Irwin Yablans. I believe it's Irwinyablans. And he was a producer who had come up with a concept about doing a horror film, and it was originally going to be titled The Babysitter Murders, just a person stalking babysitters, just a simple concept. And he actually looked up the copyrights, or if someone had ever copyrighted, and so he's a genius. Literally, this man, in a lot of ways, is as responsible for the success of this franchise as John Carpenter or anyone else. I don't even think that's a hot take. He goes and looks and sees that no one has ever copyrighted Halloween as a movie and used that, the holiday, the name, obviously recognizable all around the world. So he's a genius, so he copyrights that, attaches it to the project. So instead of being called The Babysitter Murders, which could have just been, Fly By Night, it's an interesting title, but if you think about it, that doesn't really stick with you. Halloween, now that's a title. And then the character of Michael Myers, if I remember correctly, came from, was it John Carpenter was honoring an attorney or a person he knew from England, and his name was Michael Myers. Mustafa Akkad got involved because that's who Yablans went to as the financier. So he's the producer, but I wouldn't say more of a hands-on producer. He was more of a, he's involved, but he's more, especially in the original, just kind of the person who is financing it, which is obviously really important, but there's a distinction between like an executive producer and a producer. A producer's more of like your hands-on part of the day-to-day activities, and this one, he's more of an executive producer. He's involved, but more financing it. So anyway, John Carpenter gets tasked with being given the movie, and they shoot it in, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks. It's a very short production. I don't remember exactly, but it was a short production. And the mask, that's another great story. You know, it's they were looking at a clown mask or this thing or that thing. They purchased a Captain Kirk mask. I don't remember the exact total, but it's essentially a couple of dollars. They alter it. Tommy Lee Wallace, once again, Tommy Lee Wallace, the director of Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, back to that, and the director of the It miniseries from 1990 with Tim Curry, which is a staple of anyone who was in my generation. I'm born in '83. That was, to this day, I'm nostalgic for that movie, and as much as I love the newer ones, I don't think I could ever put it above those, because those were just huge. You have no idea how huge those were. So Tommy Lee Wallace is responsible for the mask, essentially, because he gets it. He comes up with the idea of creating it. He makes it. He takes off the sideburns. He changes the hair. He paints it white to give it this ghostly appearance, and then there you go. The shape is born. The Michael Myers character is born. John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, who was his girlfriend at the time, who's also the producer of the film, they were co-writers on this. Carpenter wrote quite a bit of it. Deborah Hill wrote quite a bit as well. Hers was more the female dialogue, which would make sense. You know, a female giving a perspective on how female high school students would talk in the 70s. That's why a lot of it feels organic. Trying to think of other details. I know that John Carpenter showed it one time to some folks, and they didn't find it scary at all. The music wasn't there yet. So Carpenter himself comes up with the music. I don't remember exactly where all that came from, but it was it's a simple score, but it totally changed the film. The film has really no blood at all. The only blood that it has is we see the aftermath of someone Michael kills to essentially get his jumpsuit, and beyond that there's no blood seen. We see a lot of it's theater of the mind. You think you have, but if you go back and watch it like I have 100 times, it's not there. It's all theater of the mind, suspense. He's very mysterious. He's listed as the shape in the credits there. It's a classic of the genre in a lot of ways. One, because it's a great film. Two, because it is responsible. I understand Black Christmas, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all of that, but Halloween is responsible for Friday the 13th. I mean, Sean Cunningham literally said, let's rip off Halloween, and there's 100 other imitators. I don't think we would have ever had Friday the 13th for sure. I don't think we would have ever had Nightmare. I don't think there's a lot of other films that would have gotten made. Who knows, maybe Phantasm wouldn't have gotten as much attention had Halloween not blown up, but Phantasm came out the next year and did really, really well in the same genre. And so the movie made for like $300,000 and ends up becoming a massive hit. As a matter of fact, it was the most successful independent film until the Blair Witch Project, so for 21 years, something like that. And it thrived on suspense. It's very simple. Michael we find out Michael had killed his sister. We don't know why. He gets put in the sanitarium. Dr. Loomis, played by the great Donald Pleasance from England, he's building him up the whole time. He's just pure evil. I spent 7 years trying to reach him, 8 years trying to reach him, another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized he's pure evil. And eventually he escapes on Halloween night. This is when he's 21, 1978. Comes back to his hometown. He's at his house. Laurie Strode's dad just happens to be a real estate agent. She comes by there, drops off a key, sees her, and then he's stalking them the whole time. And there's not much explanation at the end. Dr. Loomis comes in at the very last second, saves the day, shoots him off the balcony, and he disappears. A lot of people say that's where it should have ended. I don't want to get into all that. I will say this one is definitely going to be near the top. It'll probably be number 2, not number 1, because for me, my number 1 is Halloween 4. That's the first one I saw. I get that it's kind of a remake of this. I've already said earlier, I think it's a better version, but the original Halloween, great film, 1978. Definitely Carpenter was not wanting to do a second one. What basically happened is he ended up being forced through a court battle to write the second Halloween. He didn't feel like there was any other story to be told. I strongly disagree with that, clearly, because we've had a lot of other great stories involving the character, but he didn't feel like he had any other stories to tell. So infamously, I think he cut a deal with Avco Embassy. I think it was to make The Fog and Escape from New York, but they took him to court and said, you have to write Halloween. So he, John Carpenter and Deborah Hill go to produce Halloween 2. I feel like because Carpenter did some reshoots, it almost feels like he ghost directed it because of how bad Halloween Resurrection is. And Rick Rosenthal's apparently his first cut wasn't scary at all. So Carpenter went in, and I think I almost treat it like Carpenter directed this. To me, I know he didn't, but he definitely directed some reshoots, so he definitely co-directed part of it. And he infamously, in my personal opinion, just didn't know what to do and just stole the idea. That's also, I'm sure, a super hot take, but Empire Strikes Back came out. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to come up with a reason why Michael would come after her. I honestly don't know why he didn't just say she got away, and then I don't feel like you need to explain anything else. She got away, and he's going after her somehow. But they, of course, write in the infamous sister twist. I should have said this at the beginning, but spoiler warning. I don't know why you haven't seen these films, but I'm going to be spoiling the heck out of every one of these because this is a franchise discussion, and I'm not going to talk around movies that have been around for decades. So, Carpenter basically was drinking a 6-pack of beer every night because he didn't know what to write, he didn't know what to say, he didn't know what story to tell. For me, Halloween 2 feels like a lot like Friday 3, actually. It reminds me of Friday 3 because there's this great opening and this great ending, and in the middle it's like nobody seemed to know what the hell to do. And just kind of Friday 3, you're walking around in the barn and you're going to a gas station and we got 3D effects, so we're chucking things at the screen. And this one, it's the same. I mean, it opens where the other one opened. It opens with Mr. Sandman playing this kind of really like happy song, and it's just this really cool little juxtaposition of a really dark moment, but like this happy song. And Hollywood has taken that to the ends of the earth, but I think that might have been the first one to do it. It works great. It's kind of funny that in the original, he clearly falls into the backyard, and in this one, he falls into the front yard. And if you listen, he shoots 7 times, not 6, which is funny because it's a revolver. It couldn't have shot 7 times. And then when Dr. Loomis comes downstairs, like the jacket changes because that was a new shot. He's got like on a jacket with like this size of lapels, and he comes downstairs and the lapels grew. It's kind of funny. It's a great opening though. You know, Loomis goes and finds the blood, and the neighbor says, "I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight. You don't know what death is." And it hits the new version of the score with the synth, and it's much bigger and in some ways almost even better. The original score is incredible, but John Carpenter has been involved in a lot of these scores, and I will rank the scores eventually too. I don't think I'll put the original at the top. It's up there, but it's not at the top for me. There's a great little bit there where Michael Myers is running around the streets. At one point he's in an alley, and you can hear Dr. Loomis down the way. He shot him, and he's disappeared, and so Michael Myers goes and gets a knife. They do an homage to this in 2018, kind of going through the suburbia, going and finding or this small town. He's going through the neighborhood in the small town, going and finding the knife and whatnot. A lot of people love this because it is a great 1-2 punch. I will admit, I probably would end up ranking this a bit higher if right before I did my ranking I watched the first two together, because the first movie is going to elevate this one. But when I look at it as an individual film on its own, which is hard to do whenever you're talking about continuity, it is continuity, and in a franchise it's difficult to do, but I think that this is just a far weaker film. It's elevated by Donald Pleasence. You get more Dr. Loomis than even Jamie Lee Curtis, and back then I would much rather have seen him. I think he's the heart of the franchise, to be honest, not Jamie Lee Curtis. She fortunately for her has lived 31 years past him at least, and so we try to like put all this emphasis on her, but in 78, 81, 88, 89, and 95, the character that held the whole franchise together more than Laurie Strode or Jamie Lloyd or anyone else is Dr. Loomis. So you get some great nonsensical dialogue, things like that. The tribe, one of the numbers was butchered. This is a wake. That's a great one. I have no idea what that means, but it's funny. When they show up at the Myers house, Hunter Von Leer, I think is his name. He plays Deputy Hunt. He's great too. The hospital works for some people. I think it just drags. I don't really have as much investment in a lot of the characters. And because Laurie, I mean, it's realistic, Laurie's drugged, but it also makes the movie not nearly as good because the main person you want to follow besides Loomis has nothing to do. She's dreaming. I do think there's a little bit more setup for the brother-sister storyline than people remember. There is a setup there where it talks about, she has a dream and she's dreaming, and so even though there's never a discussion of her being the sister, because that's a big twist, you know, where he stole it from Empire Strikes Back. I think Carpenter was just didn't know what to do, and he was up drinking beer one night and he's like, they're related. That's the big twist. Oh my gosh, it's, you know, he's going for his sister. He couldn't get her, now he's going for her. He killed the one sister in 63, he's come back for the other one. Okay, it works, but I think it's obvious because this came out in 81 and then Empire came out in 80. It's clearly stolen. It's okay, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. Everybody takes from everybody else, but it I like this movie a lot, but the conclusion to me, it always feels too abrupt. It's like nothing's happening, and then you're cutting back and forth between Loomis and Laurie, and you get to the hospital, and it just feels very abrupt. I feel the same way about the conclusion to H2O. I've just soured on it a bit over the years. It's not as great to me as I remember when I go back and watch it. I'll put it that way. So then they did Season of the Witch. It was successful. It wasn't nearly as successful as the first one, but it made a good amount of money. I think it was a $2.5 million budget, made somewhere around 20 to 25 million. So a good return on investment. But at the end, because Dr. Loomis blows Michael Myers up, or blows up the room and puts him on fire, and he's laying there, we're supposed to believe he's dead. He did that on purpose because they didn't want to do any more Michael Myers movies. So they greenlight them to make another one, and they call it Halloween, which is going to make anybody think after two movies involving the same characters, it's going to make people think it's the same thing. And then they end up doing the Season of the Witch route. I talked about that. It did not go over as well. I believe it was the same budget, $2.5 million, and it only made like 14. Now, granted, that's still a great return on investment, especially back in the early 80s, but it would be viewed as a major loss. And by that time in 82, you've already had the third Friday the 13th movie coming out. And so people are latching on to the idea of a singular killer. And so the 80s really becomes the decade of, I hate this because I'm more of a Michael guy than anybody else, but it becomes the decade of Jason and Freddy. 84 is the first Nightmare. So before we get another Halloween, we get 4 Nightmares: 84, 85, 87, 88. The first one, Freddy's Revenge, Dream Warriors, Dream Master. And then with Friday, by the time we get to Halloween 4, we're already on the 7th Friday movie. The only 2 years in the 80s where there wasn't a Friday movie was 83, the year I was born, and 87. Every other year, the other 8 years. Now, I think the quality, in my personal opinion, even though I love a lot of the movies, but I think Halloween movies try to be, for the most part, they're more, what's the word I'm looking for? They're films. There's actually like more thought given into it. Friday, most of the people in them are just trying to make money. Literally, Friday was started because Sean Cunningham decided to, let's rip off Halloween, and made an ad, and he used the date of Friday the 13th. They didn't even know what they were even going to do. When I go back and watch that, even though I love the movie and I have nostalgia for it, it's just the quality is so less, in my opinion, than Halloween. So what basically happens is Carpenter and Deborah Hill, they get Dennis Etchison, who wrote the novelizations for the first 2 Halloween movies, the novels, to come and write a script. I have seen a table read of it on, I believe it's the Pod and the Pendulum podcast on Apple Podcasts, or I listened to it. It's cool, but it's very ethereal. It's Tommy, and it's 10 years later, set in 88. I believe they wrote this in 86. And it's Tommy and Lindsay, and they're seniors in high school now. But Michael Myers doesn't come back. It's like the town's canceled Halloween, and it's kind of this, he's coming back in more of an ethereal, spiritual kind of way, or like ghostly kind of way. And Moustapha Akkad was like, no, we need it to be literally Michael Myers. And honestly, he was right. I mean, not that the movie doesn't sound cool, but that would not have worked. I'm telling you right now, it would not have worked. It would have been a huge failure, and we might have never gotten another Halloween movie. So you can say what you want about Moustapha Akkad. He, in a lot of ways, saved the franchise, I think, even though he also, in some ways, would tank it. But I think that he saved the franchise. So Carpenter and Hill sell their rights to Moustapha Akkad. That's why Halloween 4 and 5, you can sometimes find them in different capacities, I'll just say, online occasionally, because they're not owned by major studios. Halloween 4 and 5 were produced like by Trancas themselves, which is the Akkads. It's a much smaller company. It's not some big entity like Universal. And so there's a writer's strike in, I guess, they make the film in 87 or 88? But either way, there's a writer's strike, and so they have a very short time. Alan B. McElroy is pegged to write it because he was a buddy of Dwight Little, who they got to direct it. And he puts out this script, and I don't remember how long it was, like a couple of weeks or something. It's very short, and does a great job. I mean, it really is a great script. And then Halloween 4 is released. In a lot of ways, to me, this is the ultimate Halloween film. It has this atmosphere and this mood and tension, just like the first movie. But it even has some elevated imagery, like the opening scene, the sense of dread, that this time Michael's like comatose, but you're sitting there waiting for him to awaken. And the story is that the Laurie Strode character was killed off screen in a car wreck. She had a daughter named Jamie Lloyd. I don't know why her last name is Lloyd. I don't think I've ever got an explanation on that, but it's her name. And it's Danielle Harris. She's supposed to be 8 years old. Probably another reason why that movie scared the crap out of me is the character was the same age as me. I'm from a small town in Illinois. It's set in a fictional town in Illinois. You can see why I would latch on to Halloween, and even Friday to an extent more than Nightmare on Others, because Friday is also set in the woods, and I live in a rural area and went camping a lot, and so you can understand why that would make sense, right? Why I would like that, and it would make me more scared. And so basically, the transporting Michael on Halloween, I get it, makes no sense, but movie logic. It's how the 30th, and so Jamie's in his foster family, and she's in Haddonfield, of course, and they mention that he's got a niece, and somehow this awakens him, and he breaks out, kills everybody, as he does, and returns to Haddonfield. And it is just such a well-acted film. It is, it's smart. It's the acting, the writing is really good. It's also kind of a road movie because you have this road trip of like Loomis looking for Michael, and and these different things happening, which I love a movie that has lots of different set pieces, and it just feels like a lot bigger than its small budget, because this movie made, I think, around 17.5 million, and the budget was still small. I want to say the budget for this one was maybe 5 million, so it did well, especially because it was independently produced. Like, that's a lot bigger win for the Akkads than it would be for someone else, and it definitely got some buzz when it came out. And they called it The Return of Michael Myers. They wanted everybody to know the villain is there. They wanted it as plain as day. A lot of people will complain about this because they'll say that it's a retread of the first, and it's kind of a vanilla remake, and it's the same thing again. I don't feel that way. I think it takes things from the first one, sure, but I think it elevates them. Michael goes like on he attacks the town. He literally like takes down the town's defenses, like the power grid and different things, to isolate the characters. He's coming after a child, which is horrifying. There's lots of great set pieces in here. The different events on the way to Haddonfield. Got this really great scene with Loomis and this character named, what's his name? Reverend Jackson P. Sayer, Dumont County. He's great. Even the guy that does the exposition dump, who's the security guard at the Ridgemont Federal Sanitarium at the beginning, he's great. And then you get Sheriff Meeker, played by Beau Starr, awesome. You get a great scene there and on the roof, and a stinger at the end with basically Michael. Essentially, I think they were actually going to kill him, although it was really no different than the first one. They just shoot him more times and he falls into like a well or something. Okay, and they were going to make Jamie the killer. I personally think, and Danielle Harris has said the same, you can find the interview on YouTube. There's a documentary that focuses on Halloween 4, 5, and 6. I don't remember the name of the channel that has it, but if you look up Thorn Trilogy documentary or something, it's in there. And she even admitted she didn't think it would have worked as her being the killer, because they were setting it up like Michael's dead and she's going to take over now and would have started over. I don't know where you would have gone with that, because she would have had to age up. They'd have had to get a different actor. Nobody's going to follow a child killer when you got Jason Voorhees and Freddy running around, you know, and the Tall Man and these different horror villains at the time. I just don't think it would have worked. So what they end up doing is that they're drunk on their success, and there's a couple different scripts that Akkad is entertaining. He ends up having a meeting with a French director named Dominique Othenin Gerard, who famously took one of the previous script and like threw it in the garbage in front of Akkad. I think it actually made him pretty mad, but basically he comes up with a new idea. He's probably very passionate and French, and probably has a really unique way of speaking from what I've seen, and he's got a vision, you know. He sold himself, right? So he gets him, and there's 2 or 3 other people were involved in writing it. And notoriously started without even a script being done. I think they were writing it as the movie went along. Halloween 5 is a mess. I am very nostalgic for it because I saw it right after I saw Halloween 4, probably in that same week. And I'm forgiving a lot of it. But in a lot of films in this series, the mask changes. Like, Michael goes down a mine shaft, goes into a river, and comes out, and his mask is different. And he's built differently, and his shoulder pads are gone from Halloween 4, and I just kind of forget that kind of stuff. It has a lot of things in it that are strange, but if you understand that he is a European filmmaker, and giallo films, these Italian horror films that everybody like puts up on this pedestal, it's like everything that's old has to be put up on a pedestal. We just do that. we do that with people too. You know, they could be the biggest asshole ever, and if they've been dead for 50 years, they're all of a sudden the same now. But I think if you look at it like even the clown cops, they would do weird things like that in Giallo movies. I get that it's bad in some ways, but we'd be forgiving if it was some Suspiria or something. We would totally forgive it. We can't forgive Halloween 5 for that. I think that's ridiculous. It has the Myers house. I get that it's not the same house. It gets this huge Victorian mansion. It's ridiculous, yes, but because of what the director wanted to do and the different things he wanted to make happen in the third act, I wouldn't say I forgive it. I would say I understand based upon what he was trying to shoot, because the Myers house is a little bitty house. I mean, look at it in Resurrection. I'm supposed to believe they were walking around there all night? No. A lot of people hate that Rachel gets killed and Tina becomes the lead. I was more forgiving of that because I was used to that happening, I guess, because in horror films a lot of times the previous, I mean, Alice was great in the first Friday. She gets killed right away, and then Kristen and Dream Warriors and Dream Master, she gets killed. I'm not gonna say I like it most of the time, but I'm used to it, so it didn't bother me as much. And I felt like it upped the stakes. I felt like it took away Jamie's protector. And then you have Tina, who ultimately does sacrifice herself to save Jamie, but it's almost more like, oh my gosh, like how's she gonna protect Jamie? It almost makes her feel more vulnerable. Everybody talks about how crazy Dr. Loomis is in this movie. It doesn't bother me. It makes sense based upon what happened, and I still think Donald Pleasence is great. I don't have any problem with it. I think the end of the film, the stuff with the Men in Black, them putting things in that they didn't even know what to do with, and they said we'll figure it out in the next movie, is very lazy. As much as I like Curse of Michael Myers, I think that this set them up and painted them into a corner and really screwed them over in a lot of ways, because that is, you put ideas in that you want somebody else to figure out what you meant when you didn't even know what you meant. I don't know about that. That could have been left out altogether, because then the end, they break Michael out, and it was a cool ending. But God bless Daniel Farrens for trying to make. Daniel Farrens is the writer. Well, they greatly massacred his script, the Weinsteins and others. But he was the person who came up with the pitch for the 6th Halloween. Because at the end, Jamie goes back into the police station. This mysterious man in black, you hear gunshots, and he comes in, and I guess he had bombs too, because there's like stuff on fire and bars bent. He had like an arsenal. So he breaks Michael out, but then you don't even see Michael and him. So it's just Jamie, and it is effective. She's no, and she sees all the police dead. And then she's alone, and it's a scary image, but it's also, I mean, horror is notorious for cliffhangers, but there is that. Now, it has some effective sequences. The whole barn sequence has a lot of that giallo feel to it, the way it's lit and things. That's really good at the Tower Farm. A lot of the stuff at the house works. Everybody always talks about the laundry chute. I think other parts of that work great. Charlie, Michael Myers is outside. Good stuff. Yeah, I like it a lot. I don't know where it'll rank. It moves all over for me. I feel like when I listen to too many other YouTubers and listen to their negative opinions about it, I start to be influenced by that, and I'll put it back around 8 or 9, and then a lot of times I have it up somewhere between 3 to 6, because I genuinely love the movie. Like I said, it's like the second horror film I can ever remember watching after Halloween 4. So, and I genuinely like it. I see what problems people have with it, but I've never found it to be boring. The thing that's hilarious to me is people will say that's boring. How is the original Halloween not boring? How is Halloween 2 not boring? Halloween 2 has a huge gap in the middle where almost nothing happens. And in the first Halloween, it's this very slow build. Well, if it's a slow build and it's John Carpenter, because we all have to apparently think John Carpenter is the greatest thing since sliced bread, then that's perfectly fine, and then it's a build up. But if Dominic Othan and Gerard does it it's just because the internet becomes this like mob, like in Halloween Kills, that we have to just all of a sudden believe the same as everybody else. I'm so sick and tired of hearing that. I'm here because I have my own opinions, and I want to know what yours are, and I don't want everybody on YouTube to have the same opinion. How boring would that be? That leads me into Halloween 6. So, I have always had a soft spot for, and you'll hear me say this ad nauseum, I've probably said it several times on my channel already, you'll hear me say it more. I've always had a soft spot for Freddy's Dead, for Jason Goes to Hell, and for Halloween The Curse of Michael Myers. Well, and you'd probably say Halloween 5 as well, but those three in particular have a interesting history with me. I'll explain. I see Halloween 4 in the summer of '91, and right around that time, it might even have been that week or that month, it would have certainly had to have been that summer, they began to advertise on TV. You know, back whenever all we had was local channels or cable, remember that? And there was no internet, and so that was the only way I could see things like that, was a newspaper, a magazine, or television, or if I happened to go to the movies, which my parents didn't take me that much. The closest movie theater, for the most part, unless our local theater was in, it was always open and then closed, and open and then closed on different management. We had to drive like 45 minutes, so my parents weren't big movie people like me, so we didn't go that much. So I'm on TV, watching TV, I see the preview for Freddy's Dead, and I've never had a problem with it. That was the first Friday film that came out, or sorry, the first Nightmare film that came out. And then the first Friday film that came out after I became a horror fan was Jason Goes to Hell, and I saw it on VHS. Once again, my parents wouldn't take me. I saw it on VHS. So that would have had to probably been early '94, because movies took almost a year to come out. So that'd have probably been 10 or 11. Once again, always liked it too, never understood the hate. And then Curse of Michael Myers, same thing. I've been watching, I found these in '91, so you got 91, 92, 93, 94, 95. At the end of '95, Curse of Michael Myers comes out, and I don't even remember if I even knew, yes I did. I did know they were making a new one, because I remember renting a VHS of The Crow or something like that, and they were still calling it Halloween 666, The Origin, or something like that. And I was so stoked. It looked like we were gonna get more of an explanation, which oddly enough, back then I kind of liked, just because I liked the expansion of the story. I liked building the world and things like I've said in this video. And so I realized this video is really long, so if you stuck with me, thank you. This is part 1 of 3. And so when it came out finally on video in 1996, I don't remember exactly when, I just remember that case, the blue mask and the knife, and I remember thinking it was, I still to this day think it's probably the scariest, probably even scarier than 4, because like he's in these tunnels, and it's just a notoriously difficult production. That's why there's 2 different cuts. The original cut they made, I don't remember exactly how it works, because the Akkads obviously own kind of the property, but then the Weinsteins with Miramax underneath their Dimension Pictures label were producing it as well. Basically what happened is Farron's, his script didn't stay exactly the same, but there was the Akkads and Farron's kind of more the producer's cut, leaning more into the cult and all these kinds of things, where Farron's was trying to explain everything in the series and make sense of it. Probably not the greatest way to go about it, but he was hamstringed because he got that stupid, well, I don't know, it's kind of cool, I guess, but either way, you're handicapped by the thorn tattoo and all these different things, this man in black. But the Weinsteins, apparently, I'm assuming from test screenings, it wasn't going over well. People weren't liking it. So they go to California and they do a bunch of reshoots. Donald Pleasence has already died, so they can't bring him in. Unfortunately, he passed away in February of 1995. And they don't even let the Akkads know about it, as far as, if I remember correctly. And so they shoot this whole, and to be honest, I like the third act, actually. They shot a lot better than the other one, instead of Paul Rudd saying words and putting out rocks on the ground. That ending sucks. This one is at least scary. May not make any sense really, but it's scary. Michael is essentially tied to a constellation that's tied to an ancient Celtic ritual named Thorn. I get that it doesn't make sense, but I look at it as I found it to be very atmospheric, entertaining, scary. And I feel like 4, 5, and 6 is still the scariest Michael has ever been. And the movie really moves. It has a lot of what I like, a lot of different set pieces. It's got some road stuff with Michael getting to Haddonfield, and a lot of people hate that Jamie gets killed at the beginning. I think it was easier for me to absorb because it's not played by the same actress, even though it's the same character. Once again, I'm used to it by this point. This is the mid-90s. I'm used to them always killing off the characters I like. And so I think I'm always following the story and the villain more than even the characters, which is probably unique to horror over anything else. And so I have never liked the producer's cut. If I do rank it on here, it'll be probably near the bottom, down there with Resurrection. Although the theatrical cut, that's going to be way up there. I love that version of the movie. I find it to be very scary. I think Marianne Hagen as Kara Strode is great. I like Paul Rudd as Tommy. I get weird and over the top, but it makes sense for what he went through and the trauma he experienced and the way he's been living. It makes sense to me. I like that he's like he's more Dr. Loomis than Dr. Loomis in this. Dr. Loomis is kind of, well, Donald Pleasence was at the end of his life. He didn't have a whole lot of vigor like he did even in 5. And so Tommy kind of takes on more of the Dr. Loomis role. Michael is more mysterious than ever. The mask and the eyes and everything, he just looks, in Halloween's 4 and 6 in particular, Michael's like a specter. He's almost like definitely supernatural, more so than human. And it ends, if you watch the producer's cut, there's the acorns on the ground thing. And then if you watch the theatrical version, Paul Rudd beats the hell out of him with a pipe. It doesn't make sense if you think about the fact that he just leaves him on the ground and just like, oh yeah, he's maybe dead, maybe he's not. And then we hear Donald Pleasence scream, so we're supposed to assume that Donald Pleasence goes back in and gets killed by Michael. That's anticlimactic too, but once again, Dr. Loomis had to die because Donald Pleasence has died and they didn't want to recast him. And then, so that's going to end this first franchise discussion. If you watch to the end, you have an amazing attention span. Thank you for sticking around. And next time we're going to talk about starting with Halloween H2O in 1998, going all the way up through the 4th movie in this iteration, which will be Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And then in part 3, we will do the H40 timeline. And eventually I'll do my Halloween franchise ranking. But until then, stay spooky.